Welcome back to Shipping Containers Part 2. In this part, we're going to have a look at how we're going to paint and texture the containers. It's still a very quick and easy standard, but it'll be good enough for your tabletop, hopefully. For this part of the construction, we will need some water. Any old water will suffice. Something to mix with. We will need some brushes, a sponge, a container to mix our filler in. Our filler. This is a B&Q own-made filler. Any filler will do. And we will need paints. At least 2 shades of brown and whatever colours you wish to paint your shipping containers. Plus a grey for scrapes and scratches. Okay, so we have 3 containers here, and we're going to leave one bare, and we're not going to texture that one. There we are, untextured. I've even written it on the bottom, so that we can compare them to the textured ones. Now I'm going to texture one of them, and I'm going to get Welsh Mini Girl to texture the other, and we'll see with an 11-year-old doing one, me doing one, and what it look like without any texturing, and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, first of all, for texturing, we're going to use filler. So just simply get some of your filler. A blob of it will do. Put it in your mixing tub. Add a splash of water. And mix it up a little bit. Okay, so I might need a good bit more filler. And basically, we just want to be able to keep the filler wet. I would say that it doesn't have to be really soaking wet. All it just needs to be is moist enough that it's not going to dry out. Okay, so that is fine. The technique for texturing is simple. Welsh Mini Girl here will show you now. Go ahead. So we stipple it on, starting at the bottom of the crate and moving up. Make sure you have some of the filler on your brush. Start at the top, bottom and work your way up. And do this all over the side. Making sure that you get some chunks, because this will only add texture to it. Making sure that at the bottom is the heavier stippling. Just move it there you go. Hold it there. Good girl. That's right. Also, make sure that you use brushes that you don't mind destroying, because this will kill your brushes. Especially when Welsh Mini Girl's having a go. That's right. Try and make sure that you use more of the paste than the water. That's it. Very good. After you've done the sides, you do this all over. The front, the back, and of course the roof. We'll be back with you once we've finished. There, I don't know how well you can see that texturing at the moment because the plaster is white as well. But Welsh Mini Girl has covered it, so hopefully that's going to look good now once it's done. And with all her fingerprints on it now because she's been handling it. we might have to stipple over that again. So next step will be black bombing it.
What is black bombing, Dad?
Well, funny you should mention that. Black bombing is a term used to cover it completely black. So usually using a spray can or an airbrush, you completely cover whatever the subject is black. Yeah, so this is what it looks like when it's been black bombed. Brush on black bombed because I couldn't use my spray because it was the coldest week of the year. So yeah, I'm showing you some acrylic colours that you could choose. I go with the blue. So unfortunately, because I couldn't use the spray to black bomb it, I had to use the brush on, and of course when you brush it on you don't get coverage as good as you do with the spray. But it's okay, it covered enough. So here I am, just showing you. Paint the trims at the edge first. You don't want it too thick on your brush, kind of like a dry brush, but a little bit thicker than a dry brush. And then going over the surface of the roof. Again, it's a dry brush technique, hitting the raised surfaces and avoiding the recesses to get some sort of variation. So you just flick the brush over the area, going back and forth, trying to get a covering. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be uniformed at all. Just keep going over it, smudge it in if you think you put too much paint on a certain area. Here I decided that my brush was a bit small, so I changed to another brush. And as you can see, it's covering a lot better with my slightly bigger brush. Could have even gone a lot bigger, and it wouldn't have made a difference. Personally, I would think go for more of an overbrush when you're doing this rather than a dry brush. So keep more of the paint on the brush and keep the brush moving back and forth. And don't be afraid to smudge it in with your fingers. That won't ruin it. All it'll do is blend the colours in a lot better. So yes, you'll have to excuse the voice. The family's come down with a cold, so I'm a victim of the children's plague. So yeah, like I said, probably pick a bigger brush to do this with, apart from the trims, which you'll need a smaller brush, and just rub in anywhere where you think that the colour has gone on a bit too heavy. So yeah, on the edges you're going to have to paint it in as opposed to overbrush or dry brush, because these parts don't particularly stick out but would look strange if they were black, completely black. So just paint them and then rub your finger across to blend it in. As you can see now, I'm doing more of an overbrush than a dry brush, and it's covering a lot better. I should have done this from the beginning, but it's going to take 2 coats regardless, so what I miss with the first coat you can always pick up with on the second coat, or even the third if you wish. But as you can see, it's given some different colours, the recesses are showing up, so yeah, it's looking pretty good. We're not going to win any awards for it, but the paint standard is going to be easy enough for your table, or it's easy enough for my table anyway. The thing is, these are so quick and easy to paint, and so quick and easy to make, that you can fill up a table very quickly. So if you're working on a deadline, you should be able to knock up loads of these. So yeah, as you can see, after 2 coats, it's pretty well covered. So we're going to weather and texture it now. So get a sponge and you tear it in half or into a manageable size, and then you pick out random pieces. The idea is you don't want any straight lines left on the sponge. You want a random looking texture. So something like that. So then you get your dark brown. Place it on your palette and work the sponge into the paint and spread it out a bit. Get it quite even on the sponge. Then we're just going to dab it along the bottom and work our way up, very much like when we were texturing with the filler. So yeah, just dab it along and move up and around. It's really up to you how much you want to do this. If you want to have it more battered and more weathered, you do it more. So just dab it on, press it on, and keep moving. So yeah, going heavy at the bottom. Adding a bit more paint because nothing much was really showing up. There you go, spread it out a bit. There, that's looking a lot better. Just keep moving it around. Try not to be too specific, you don't want a pattern. So move the sponge around, use different parts of the sponge. Don't really want a pattern showing up because that'll look a bit strange because it's meant to be grime and all that's built up over the time. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. Down the middle of the roof there'd be more grime maybe and rust than maybe on the edges on this bit, so yeah, done. Okay, so now using the lighter brown colour we're going to mix it in with the original brown. So this is the lighter brown. I'll peel the sticker back to show you a bit better. There you go, it's a lighter brown. And just blob a bunch on. Doesn't have to be anything specific, just mix it in. And spread it out over your card to make sure that it's nice and even coming off the sponge. Okay. Be careful when you first put this one on because it's so much lighter. You don't want to go too heavy to begin with. See how much comes off as you dab it. Otherwise you'll end up with really weird looking patterns if you go on too heavy too quick. So here, yeah, I'm just scraping across the top as well because I think the edges is where it's going to catch quite a bit of dirt. So yeah, so I scrape the sponge across the edges as well. And yeah, it adds a nice looking effect. And the variation in colour will really show up quite nice once it's done. Again, blend it with your finger. It's only acrylic paint, it's not going to do you any harm. to just dab over all the areas, and yeah, it should start looking quite battered and worn and dirty, which is what I want it to look like. I don't want my containers looking too clean. Now, as I'm doing this, I pull off some of the paint and leave a white spot, as you can see. So I decided, I'll make some dirty grime marks over it to cover it up. Easy, done, covered. Yeah, that looks quite effective actually. So yeah, just do a few grimy stains running down the side of it. Wherever you make a mistake, it's always easy to cover them up, or if you scrape the paint off like I did, that's just perfect place to put grime. And that's pretty much that stage done. Okay, final thoughts and pictures. As you can see, they turned out pretty well. Welsh Mini Girls and mine are indistinguishable. You couldn't tell which one I did and which one my 11-year-old little girl did, so I'm really proud of her. The untextured one looks a lot newer, less beaten up, which was the idea. So if you're going for a modern scenery set that hasn't seen the end of the world or whatever, maybe go with that. Don't bother texturing it. But if you want to have it in a war zone or something, texture them. The open container, as you can see, there is a little white patch. Because I couldn't spray prime, I had to use a brush, and that was very awkward to do. So if I had known I couldn't spray primed, I would have painted the inside first and then put it together. So that's something to keep an eye out on. As you can see, you can kind of picture the scenarios that you could have with this for modern role-playing games or zombie apocalypse games, either role-playing games or skirmish games, even miniature skirmish games. Personally, I'm going to be using it for role-playing games, and I'm also going to be using it for Mantic's All Out War Walking Dead game, probably as well for This Is Not a Test, which is my favourite miniature skirmish game at the moment. But seeing these now, you can see already how cinematic they could be, running around a labyrinth of containers while being chased by zombies or whatever. It will really work well. So they were very quick, very easy. You can paint them and build them in a couple of nights, and you could have quite a few built up within about 4 days. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you make some brilliant terrain and maybe show them down below. That'd be brilliant. Or comment if you can. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.